Hi, I'm Sam Hawley, coming to you from the lands of the Gadigal people. This is ABC News Daily. Imagine for a second what it would be like not to have a home this Christmas or to not have enough food to feed your family. That's the reality for a growing number of Australians faced with the massive increase in costs. In Sydney, Reverend Bill Crews provides 3 meals a day for the less fortunate and will help feed thousands, including many children, on Christmas Day. After 50 years working in the field, today he discusses the changing face of poverty in Australia. Tell me where we are.
We're at the site of the Reverend Bill Crews Foundation in Ashfield.
Yeah, and what do they do here at this restaurant?
Here we prepare 1,400 to 1,600 meals every day.
Oh my gosh.
Cook
That's a lot.
and prepare. A lot. I'll come in and look.
All right.
This is the kitchen where it's all done.
This is where it all goes.
You can see that it's flat out. We have the big steam ovens.
Yep.
So we can prepare everything.
What are they cooking up today, Bill? Looks like a stew,
I don't
is
know,
it?
what are you doing today?
Veal casserole.
Oh, veal
Veal
casserole. Looks good.
We're getting ready now for lunch here.
Yep.
Breakfast has been served, and you can see we've got the Bain Marie, so they can scoop it out into the plate.
Yeah.
I'm Reverend Bill Crews, and I kind of try to run an entity, an amoeba called the Reverend Bill Crews Foundation.
And you feed the poor, and a lot of them.
We try to feed people. We've morphed from feeding the homeless to feeding the hungry.
How many people do you feed a day? And how has that, just give me a sense of how that has changed, the number has increased over the time?
Before the pandemic, or say at the beginning of the year of the pandemic, we'd be doing maybe 400 meals, and we had one food van. Now, almost 3 years later, we're doing at least 1,600 meals a day. We've got 5 food vans, and we're in 17 locations, and we've got 4 Loaves and Fishes restaurants. Bang, just exploded. Now, some of that is because we've moved to other locations, extra locations, because we've been asked to move there because the agency or whatever has closed down. Some of it is just the increasing numbers of people coming. But we've quadrupled our business, call it, in 3 years.
Because you've been doing this, Bill, since the 1971?
Yeah.
I mean...
50 years. Yeah.
50 years.
50 years.
Such a very long time. Over those decades, through the 70s, through the 80s, through the 90s, etc., what have you seen change in terms of homelessness? I mean, it's probably a big question, right?
Well, the biggest change is the biggest change is in the 70s, people were either homeless or not. Mm-hmm. You know, you had a lot of the traumatised World War II veterans who were on the streets. A lot of that. You had a lot of homeless kids who who were adopted, who had been given back, and kids in institutions and all of that. So that if a kid was homeless, it was snapped up and put in an institution. If a person was homeless, they'd be on the streets. Nowadays, it's much greyer than that, so that there's a lot of people couch surfing. There's a lot of sharing accommodation. There's a lot of movement, whereas before there was a definite A and B.
And what are you seeing in terms of the people that come to eat here? Are they changing, the sort of people that are coming now?
Well, you get the core, you get a core that doesn't really change over the decades, but you get more and more people who would say, oh, I've walked past this place for years and never thought I'd be here, and here I am. That's common. A lot of women escaping domestic violence, just turning up. They've managed to get away, and then they look around and they think, gosh, do I have to go back? So it's difficult, just difficult.
And the work that you do, you get a sense, don't you, much sooner than governments, in fact, of the societal problems.
We are a barometer of society, so that if there was an increase in young people's unemployment, they'd be eating in our restaurant. If it was single women unemployed, they'd be eating in our restaurant. If it was people with one arm unemployed, you'd have a restaurant full of one-armed people. So we're a tremendous barometer of what's going on in society. And in lots of ways, governments kind of ignore that because they want to deal with what society believes, so that often what we see isn't what society wants to believe is actually going on.
You once fed the homeless, now you feed the hungry. What does that mean?
Well, it kind of began in a lots of ways. It was starting before COVID, but then exploded during that, because there are pockets of people who firstly just don't earn enough money to get through. So they have to work out whether it's kids' uniforms or meals or, medicine or meals. So people started coming to us before the pandemic, but then during the pandemic it exploded, and they end up with us because there's nowhere else to go, because we'd decided we were not closing down. We had 4 stages of lockdown, from serving sandwiches from the side of the road in a truck to being fully open. We'd worked it out so we could do that. And because of that, we were the people of last resort, so they just flooded here.
Because they were hungry, basically.
Hungry and with the bum out of their trousers, Nothing. They had nothing. So that, and you think, how can society leave people like that? But it does. And you see there's a class and a group of people who constantly and consciously get left out. And so we then started to really target those people.
And who, Bill, do you blame for that?
Well, over years, 50 years ago, in a way you could make governments feel guilty, because I could get up and I could say, oh, look, this person really needs help. All I need is the government to do this. And they'd give it to me to shut me up, Nowadays, they punch back. They just punch back.
What do you mean by that? They don't feel guilty anymore? They have no guilt?
No, they have no guilt. They have no guilt. You see, and in lots of ways, they've turned compassion into a job. So they say, oh, that's not our job anymore. We've outsourced it to so-and-so or outsourced it to so-and-so. Don't blame us, blame them. One of the difficulties as well is that governments are treating, I hate calling it welfare. People are treating welfare like a business. So people like us look for support, which is also given to agencies which work for profit to do this work. So that I think there's going to be a need, a reckoning of what loving compassion is all about, whether it's a job or whether it's a mission.
Tell me, how does it run financially, the mix of...
We basically run on people's donations. I go out, most of the people I see beg for money, and we beg for money too. So most of it comes from kind people giving us money. A lot of people, during the pandemic, what really moved me was a lot of pensioners, when they got that extra payment, would send it to us. So, it's those people the people who help one another. Like, the moving thing for me is, a woman and a couple of kids will turn up and they'll have a plastic bag full of tinned food to give to someone, and a woman and a couple of kids will turn up who need it. So they'll just hand it over. That's ideally what we do.
Bill, we know the financial pressures next year for Australians are going to get worse. We've been told that, so we're expecting it. So what does that look like for you and what you do? Are you expecting that more and more people are going to need help from you?
Oh, we know that. We know more people are going to need help, and more people in surprising areas. Like it doesn't hit like you think.
Bill, what does Christmas look like this year?
Here on this site in Ashfield, we got thousands turn up, and we'll have a big celebration. And a lot of people will be here because it's too painful to be anywhere else. And that's what I'm always aware of. There was one mother comes here and she said, I don't know what to do on Christmas Day. And I said, come here and be part of what we do. And there'll be a lot of people here whose kids are with the ex somewhere. They come here because we are the family they would love to have at this time. So that gives them a bit of hope that maybe one day it'll happen.
That's good. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Get me crying. Reverend Bill Crews runs the Exodus Foundation, which provides free meals to thousands of homeless and disadvantaged Australians every week, including on Christmas Day. According to the latest Australian Homelessness Monitor, in the past 4 years, there was a 27% increase in people seeking help at homelessness services because they could no longer afford to rent. This episode was produced by Flint Duxfield and Chris Dengate, who also did the mix. The ABC News Daily team will be taking a break from next week and will be back on the 23rd of January. Every Tuesday and Thursday we'll be replaying some of the best episodes of the year, so please keep tuning in. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for your company throughout the year. See you in 2023.
Subscribe to listen to more free podcasts or download the ABC Listen app and stream ad-free.